Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make picture perfect macarons. So many of you have requested this video, and personally I absolutely love macarons and think they're just a super gorgeous way to decorate cakes. So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys all of my tips and tricks on how to get macarons right. Apart from that, if you're new to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. Apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. The first thing you want to start off with is your ingredients. So when it comes to making macarons, you really want to make sure that you're weighing all your ingredients. So if I'm being honest, I'm a bit of a lazy baker, so I just like my cups and spoon measurements instead of kind of pulling out my kitchen scale. But one time I definitely do pull it out is when making macarons. So I would highly recommend weighing all your ingredients, and I will have the full quantities to all the ingredients in the description box below. Now for our ingredients today, we've got some icing sugar, also known as confectioner's sugar. We've got some white granulated sugar, some almond flour, some vanilla essence or extract, whatever you've got on hand, some egg whites, and then some food coloring, which is optional. So I've just got some pink gel food color over there. Now the first thing that you want to do is you want to separate your egg whites from your egg yolks, which I have already done. Now if your eggs have been in the fridge, you really want to make sure that you kind of separate your egg whites and then leave them out to sit to come to room temperature. So you want your egg whites to be at room temperature so that they whip up better into a nice meringue. So once that's done, just set that aside, and then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to combine our almond flour and our icing sugar in a food processor, and we're going to whiz that up together until it's really nice and fine. So the reason why we're doing this is because in order to get a macaron which is not grainy, you want to make sure that your almond flour is really nice and fine, which is going to give us a nice macaron. Now when it comes to mixing these two together, I'm going to start off by mixing it on a high speed for 15 seconds, and then I'm going to give it a little mix to make sure that everything's nicely combined, and then I'm going to mix it on high again for another 15 seconds. Now you want to make sure that you don't overmix the almond flour, because then that's going to start releasing the oils from the almonds, which you don't want. So you just want to mix it until it's kind of like a nice fine powder. Okay, now once your mixture is done, it should look like a nice fine powder like that. And now the last step to getting super fine almond flour and icing sugar is to sift them. So I'm going to sift them twice in a large bowl. So I've just finished my first sift, and I have a few kind of clumps which are left in my sieve, and so I'm going to discard those and then sift this one more time. Okay, so I finished my second sift now, and I'm going to do the same thing and discard any kind of lumps which are left in my sieve, and then our almond flour and icing sugar mixture is all ready to go. Now the next step to making macarons is making our meringue. Now this is another key step in making macarons because you really want to make sure that you get the right consistency for your meringue. And I'm going to show you guys step by step what it should look like and when you know it's done. So what I've got here is I've got my stand mixer with my whisk attachment on it, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop my egg whites into my mixer, and I'm going to mix that for 30 seconds until it becomes kind of light and frothy. And then once it's at that stage, then I'm going to start slowly adding in my sugar. Now you really want to do this slowly, because if you add your sugar in too quickly, it's going to deflate your meringue and it's not going to whip up well. And then once you've got all your sugar in, you're going to keep whipping until you reach a soft peak stage. So this should take kind of about maybe 2 minutes or so, and I will show you what that looks like once we reach that stage. So I'm just starting off with my egg whites on a medium-high speed for about 30 seconds. So my egg whites are nice and frothy now, so I'm going to go ahead and slowly start adding my sugar. Okay, so I'm just checking my mixture. Yep, so it's at that soft peak stage now. Now, you know when it's at a soft peak stage when you lift up your meringue and you can see a peak at the top, but it's kind of folding over. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in my vanilla and my food coloring, and then I'm going to mix that again on a high speed until we reach stiff peaks. And I'm also just scraping down the sides of the bowl to make sure that all of that sugar is kind of melting into the meringue. Now I've added vanilla into my macarons today, but at this point you can add whichever flavorings you like, as well as the coloring. So today I'm making mine pink, but at this point you can add whichever kind of coloring you like. Now one thing I will say is that you do want to use a gel color for this, so I would not recommend using liquid colors. And the reason why is because gel colors are going to maintain the consistency of the meringue without making it too liquidy. Now reaching the stiff peak stage should take kind of another maybe like 3 to 5 minutes. So I'd check it after a couple of minutes and see where it's at, and then just keep mixing it a little bit more until you reach that stiff peak. Okay, so one step to know that your meringue is done is that it'll kind of clump up in the middle like that in your whisk, which means that it's kind of stiffened up quite a bit, which is a good sign. Now another way to check is if you grab some of your batter and you kind of lift it up, you'll see now that the peaks are staying upright, so they're not kind of folding over on the sides, which is a good indication that your meringue is ready and that it's reached that stiff peak stage. Now once your meringue is all done, we're now ready to add our dry ingredients to our meringue. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add half of my dry ingredients to my meringue, and I'm going to really gently just mix that through. So you want to make sure that you're not kind of too soft, that your mixture's not incorporating well, but you don't want to be too kind of aggressive with this either. So you don't want to be kind of mixing it, you want to be gently folding it in, which I'm going to show you guys how to do now. So I'm just adding half of my mixture to the bowl. So I'm just starting off by scraping the edges of my bowl in kind of like a circular motion, and then I'm folding my spatula over into the batter. And as I mix it around, I'm cutting through the middle of the batter. Now once that's almost mixed in, I'm going to add the remaining dry ingredients and fold that in as well. Now what's happening here as we're mixing the dry ingredients into the meringue is it's starting to push out some of those air bubbles, which is making the consistency kind of a lot smoother. So the consistency that we want is we want it to be kind of flowy, so that if I lift up my spoon, right now it's not mixed in, so I can't do that right now, but if I lift up my spoon, it kind of flows down nicely into my bowl. Now there are many different kind of benchmarks that people use to get to the right consistency, but what I found works best, which is a really common way to check whether your macaronaging stage is done, is to see whether you can draw a figure 8 with your batter without it breaking. So I'll show you what it looks like when we get to that stage. So my batter has loosened up quite a bit now, so I'm just going to check it. So as you can see, it's not kind of flowing nicely off my spoon, which means that it's still too thick. Now, when it is kind of coming close to the stage, you want to make sure that you don't overmix your batter. So you just want to maybe mix it, kind of 3 or 4 times and then keep checking it, because once you're able to kind of draw that figure 8, you want to stop immediately. Okay, so I'm able to make a figure 8 now without my batter breaking, so that means that it's ready now to pop into a piping bag and pipe into little macarons. So what I've got here is I've got a piping bag with a large round tip nozzle on it, which is about 1/2 inch wide, and I'm simply putting that into a cup a long glass, to make it easier for me to pour my batter into my piping bag. Now once my batter is nicely in my piping bag, I'm going to start piping out some round shapes, which are going to be my macaron shells. Now, the size that you want is kind of anywhere between 1.5 to 2 inches. Now, what I've got here is I've just got some steel trays which I've lined with some baking paper, and I'm simply going to pipe my macaron shells on top of my baking paper. Now, you do want to make sure that you are leaving a little bit of space in between each shell because they are going to spread out a little bit. And when piping, you just want to pipe straight down and apply a bit of pressure and then just quickly flick it off. Don't worry about the tips on the tops of the macaron shells because those will kind of slowly go away. Now, once the macaron shells have been piped out, the next key step is to bang your trays onto the surface that you're working on, and this is going to help bring any of the air bubbles to the top of your macaron, which we're then going to pop with a little toothpick. And now what you want to do next is you want to grab either a toothpick or a pin or anything that's kind of thin and sharp. So I'm using my cake tester here, and you're just going to pop any of the large air bubbles which have risen to the top, and this is going to help give us a really nice kind of picture perfect shell. So I have finished popping out all the little air bubbles on the tops of my macarons, and they're looking really nice and smooth now. And now the next step before we place them into the oven is to let them dry out now a little bit for anywhere between kind of 30 minutes to 2 hours. So the time that you leave your macarons to sit really depends on the kind of weather climate that you're in. So places where the temperature is more humid, or if it's been like a rainy day, it's going to take longer for your macarons to kind of dry out. Now, you know your macarons are ready when you touch the tops of them with your finger and none of the kind of mixture sticks to your finger. So a film has kind of developed on the top of each of your macaron shells. Now, you really want to make sure that you are patient with this, because if you don't let your macarons dry out enough and you don't allow that film to develop, then the little feet on the bottoms of your macarons aren't going to kind of, bake properly, and so it's going to most probably end up in like a flat cookie. So if you really want that, nice macaron look, just make sure that you are being patient with these. So I'm going to leave these out for about an hour, and then they should be ready to pop into the oven. So my macarons have been sitting for about 50 minutes now, and 2 signs to show you that they're ready is one, as I mentioned earlier, when you touch the top, it shouldn't stick to your fingers. It kind of just makes a little indent on the top of the macaron shell. And the second thing is that it'll have more like a matte look to it. Now I'm going to pop these into the oven 1 tray at a time so that they both can be sitting in the middle rack of the oven. And I'm also going to be placing an empty tray on the very top rack of my oven. And this is going to prevent the tops of my macarons from browning. So I'm going to pop these into the oven, and then I'll be back once they're done. So my macarons are out of the oven now. They've been cooling for about an hour. Now, you know your macarons are done when they have cooled down for about 5 minutes and they can easily come off the baking paper. Now, if this doesn't happen and big lumps of it are kind of sticking to the bottom of the baking paper, that means that they're not quite ready. So you just need to pop them back into the oven for another kind of minute or 2 and just keep an eye on them. But basically, they should just really easily pop off like that. Now, the last part to making macarons is the best part, which is filling them. Now, when it comes to your filling, you can literally fill these with whatever you want. So, you can put chocolate ganache, you can put buttercream, you can put curds. But today I've just got some American buttercream here, and I'm simply just going to pipe some buttercream onto one shell and then sandwich it together with another shell. Now, to do this, I've just got a large round tip nozzle on my piping bag, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a shell. I'm just going to pipe a dollop of buttercream, but you don't want to pipe it out right to the edge, because when we get our next macaron shell and push it down, the buttercream will go towards the edges of the shells. And there you go, we have a beautiful sandwiched macaron. And now I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the rest of the macaron shells. Okay, so that's my last macaron done. I do have 1 shell left over because I piped an uneven amount of shells, but that's okay. You can just pop it aside and have it with a little bit of buttercream. But apart from that, those are my beautiful macarons all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to make gorgeous macarons. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.